Hello and welcome. I'm Brian Bulkey, the very proud superintendent of schools serving the communities of Goffstown and New Boston. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some information to voters for the articles that you will see on the second Tuesday in March when Goffstown voters go to the polls. I'd like to begin by reminding the community that this is the 11th year that we have done these budget videos. These videos are intended to inform the public. We are not attempting to influence or to sway anyone. We want people to be able to know and understand what voters will see when they go into the polls on the second Tuesday in March. So we're going to provide in this video an overview of the warrant articles that voters will see. So I will now hand it off to Mr. Gross.
Thank you, Brian. For those of you who don't know, my name is Scott Gross. I'm the business administrator for SAU19, and I'm joined by Jared Talbot, board member in Goffstown, and we're going to be chatting about the warrant articles that you're going to see on your screen right now. So as Brian mentioned, we have 5 warrant articles. The first is the election of officers. And we're going to be talking right now with Jared about the district operating budget. And Jared was the budget committee rep, so he knows the budget pretty well. And that's what we're going to be discussing right now. So you're going to go into the polls and you're going to see the language that you have on your screen right now. So the budget that is being proposed is $55,709,910. And this budget was recommended by the school board 8-0 and recommended by the budget committee 11-2. So with that, I'm going to go over to the next slide. And on this one, you're going to see here that the budget is up quite a bit. And we're going to explain that in a little bit. But the difference between the default budget and the proposed budget is a little over $307,000. And for those of you who don't know, the default budget is the current year's budget plus any contractual obligations like teacher contracts, support staff contracts, et cetera. And then anything else that's mandated by law. In this case, it could be special ed, transportation, special ed tuitions, things of that nature. So with that, Jared, I think going through the budget process, the one thing that, was, kind of a surprise was the large jump in the budget. It was, as you can see, a little over $3.3 million between on the default side, a little over $3.6 million on the proposed side. And so as you can see, the increases are, close to 7%. Jared, I just want to kind of talk through what are some of the factors, and we're going to show the viewers right now a slide, but a lot of this was things that were outside of most of our control in terms of the school district.
Yeah, Scott, thanks for sharing. So what you're seeing on your slide right now is really the reasons why we have such a jump from year to year. And most important, those first 3 lines, these are contractual obligations that the voters approved on over the past 2 years. So we're talking about $2.4 million that were approved by the taxpayers, by the voters, and those were related to salary and benefits. So looking at our teachers, looking at our custodians, looking at our support staff, we're contractually obligated because we were blessed enough to have the voters approve that. Also, you look at the special education. That is mandated by law, and these are what we must pay to support our students. And we're looking at really $750,000, again, required spending by law that we have to have. We did have some information technology updates throughout the year and what we plan on doing for next year. That's where you see those $200,000. And again, these are security updates, licensing, software. As you know, if you go home and you buy a new Apple phone or update your Windows, you have to buy a license to use those. That is really part of the fee structure that we have. The Wonders Reading Curriculum, this is a curriculum program that we look to update on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think it's every 6 or 7 years curriculum gets updated.
Yep, so we're looking at $90,000 across all of our schools. And of course, the facilities, repairs, supplies, we have to make sure that we maintain our schools with those regularly scheduled maintenance items. And then we do have some other additions and restrictions. So we did increase some of our substitute teacher lines in that last line right there of $127,000. That didn't encompass all of the substitute teacher pay. But again, these were chasing our actuals that we've had for the past years. It wasn't saying we should increase this. This is we've spent the money. And so our budget should reflect that money being spent to cover our substitute teachers and others.
And Jared, I think the viewers should know too that there were a lot of deductions based upon actuals as well. So I think there was a sensitivity from the school board's perspective, your perspective, as well as the budget committee to look at items that if it didn't meet, if the historical spending was not there, we made reductions.
That's a great reminder to me, Scott,
Yeah.
because one of those items was postage.
Right.
So we actually stopped sending the student handbooks to our juniors and seniors. We don't no longer send that because it's all online. However, we want to maintain that for our
Right.
freshmen and sophomore students. So where there was tactical ways of reducing our budget, we made sure to do that.
Right. On this next slide, what you're going to see, and this is a little bit different than municipalities, but 78% of the Goffstown School District budget is comprised of salary and benefit lines. So as Jared mentioned before when we were talking about some of the increases, the obligation of the school district is to put forth qualified staff, teachers, support staff, as you mentioned before, our administrative assistants, paraprofessionals to support our students. They comprise almost 80%. So unlike a town, which is more capital type expenditures, in the school district, it's people oriented. What you'll see here in this slide is just a brief overview of the revenue picture. So there's been a lot of discussion over the last few years, in the media, especially in New Hampshire, about funding from the state, et cetera. So that the state provides about 20% of the funding for Goffstown education. The lion's share, as many of you know, when you open your tax bills, is 57% of it is the local tax. And then 15% is from tuition that Goffstown receives because we host New Boston students at Mountain View in the 7th and 8th grades and then at Goffstown High School. So that's a fairly big component. And then the rest of it, of that percentage, is from federal grants, it is from food service and other types of revenues. So Jared, a lot has been discussed about, why does the school budget keep increasing when I keep hearing that state enrollments are going down?
Yeah, we're bucking the trend here in Goffstown. I don't know if it's because everybody wants to live here because of our great schools. But as you can see on the graph, the top line is really the reduction for the state for all of our school-age children. In Goffstown, we've remained steady. And that is a factor of people moving out and new people moving in. So as students are graduating, those new families that are moving into those homes, they're bringing in school-age children. That's how we're able to keep that kind of steady state. This is a concern for the school board as it relates to development that's going to be happening in the town. We know that several developments are being looked
Right.
at and being conducted. We did an assessment in 2022 or 2021 about school-age children and the impact of new development in our town. How many new children we would expect from these developments, whether it's a townhouse, whether it's a garden-style apartment, whether it's a full house. Those are all ranging in the estimated students we'd be receiving. So even though that we've remained steady, I believe that we could be growing as it relates to new developments occurring in our town.
Right. We brought up this one slide, and this is the projected class sizes for the 24-25 school year. And Jared, I know you were part of the Facility Space Needs Committee. You've been a part of a lot of committees, but that one, you worked hard on. And one of our challenges, as you mentioned, with all of these new developments, Maple Ave is our big one that we're worried about. We do have capacity at Mountain View and certainly at the high school, but Mountain View we're watching carefully. So when you see a grade 4 enrollments that are projected to be 29 or 30, the board just took action to flip-flop the 1st and 4th grade. So that number will come down. But we are, as a district, very worried about these new housing starts and what that might mean going forward.
Yeah, very true, Scott. And looking at, is this a bubble? Is this something that's going to continue? That's kind of the point that we are right now within the school board in the town is we're monitoring this. And if this continues, we probably have to start having hard conversations about our true facility needs.
Yeah. So Jared, this is one of the, the talking points, I would say, for the Goffstown School District overall in terms of its cost per pupil. So one of the nice things about the way that school finances are reported to the state is that there is an apples to apples comparison between how Goffstown performs in terms of financially against all other 162 school districts in the state of New Hampshire. So on this slide, what you can see is that in every category, elementary, middle, and high school, Goffstown School District is far below the state average in terms of its cost per pupil. So again, this has been the case for a while. This next graphic that you're going to see is even more telling. So this is out of 162 school districts, Goffstown overall is the fourth lowest school district in terms of cost per pupil spending out of 162 school districts. So almost $4,000 less than the state average. So I know that folks are concerned about tax bills, and I think that the school district, the school board has been sensitive to trying to do what is needed, not what everybody wants, but to do what's needed to try to do this. And I think that it's reflected in this lower cost per pupil.
Yeah, I do too. And if you look at this, we have New Boston on here too.
Right.
New Boston's number 2 lowest in the state. That is feeding our middle school and our high school. For those of you that don't know, Dunbarton used to be part of our SAU.
Right, and they're in there.
They're in there at number 3. So, I mean, we're looking at our SAU, or what used to be part of our SAU, as being lowest in the state. So I know that we've tried to be fiscally conservative as best we can, but also we want to make sure that we provide the correct support to our students, staff, and our teachers. And this just shows the hard work that everybody is using in the district.
We didn't want to be remiss and not talk about the tax impact and the tax rate, because we know that folks are sensitive to it. We both live in Goffstown. We open up those same bills just like everyone else does. And what this graphic shows is essentially we had 3 years essentially during COVID, 2019 through 2021, where the tax rate was almost stable, went down a little bit. And that was because there was a lot of federal grants and funding available. And the school district, the school board especially, directed administration, when they got those grants, was to spend them mostly on capital needs. We replaced windows at Maple Avenue and Bartlett, and we did math curriculum. So with that, we didn't spend a lot of money on things that were going to like sunset. With that, as that goes away, what we're seeing is that taxes are going up. And we also had a revaluation in Goffstown. So that was a little bit confusing for people, seeing their home values go up, in some cases 60%. If you were in a manufactured home, it might have gone up even more. So there's a recognition that these costs are borne by local taxpayers. And Jared, I think we're projecting about $11.75 on the high end, more than likely. I try to give a range of $1.50 to $1.75. And that could have a $500 or $600 impact on a house that's valued at the median in Goffstown. Where is it?
It's median, the median.
Median. Okay. I know you're a statistics guy.
Property is median.
Right,
so I believe we're using the term $410,000 for the household.
Right. So, we want to the board and the district, they're sensitive to that. But, overall, I want to thank you, Jared, for, being the school board's budget representative is a really tough task. You have to really know all of the numbers, and you did a fine job, this year representing, the district and work on the budget committee, and, to try to produce a budget like this one that is fiscally responsible.
Thank you, Scott. And we could only be as successful as the administration. I know that it really starts in the September timeframe or even during the summer, working with the department heads, kind of looking at that first cut for the administration, going to the superintendent with the superintendent's budget, then being brought to the school board. We're looking at it, then we're proving it to the budget committee, who's further looking at it. I've always loved being an advocate, and I've been doing this for 5 years, but I can say without a doubt that we try to be as mindful of the taxpayers as best we can.
Right. So with that, that's it for the warrant article. For the operating budget. For folks who have additional inquiries, please go to the school district's website, where all of the documentation is there, including the default budget calculations, the proposed operating budget. There's the ones with actuals and notes. So please do that. And next up, we're going to be talking about the Capital Reserve Fund with Nicole Bump. And now I'm joined by Nicole Bump, Goffstown School Board member. So Nicole, welcome. And we're going to be chatting about Article number 3, which is the Capital Reserve Fund deposit. So on your screen, folks, you'll see that the school district is requesting $250,000 for a deposit into the existing Capital Reserve Fund. This was established back in 2019. And the money comes from the unassigned fund balance, which is a surplus So there's no new taxation that's involved. These are funds that have already been raised. And the school board voted 7-1 to recommend this article, and the budget committee recommended this 8-5. So Nicole, I think that, for some viewers or people that are newer to town, they're like, what is a capital reserve fund?
Yeah, I had to learn a little bit about this myself
Yeah.
as I came up to speed on the board. And a capital reserve fund is an amount of money that you can have reserved in case of unplanned losses or expenses or emergencies, essentially. It can also be used for long-term capital investment projects. So things like infrastructure improvements or replacements.
Yeah, and for a lot of folks, they may not know, but there is an extensive capital improvements plan that the town and the school uses. And the school district has, I believe it's over 71 projects. There are millions of dollars in this plan because we're looking at replacing infrastructure at all of our schools. In some cases, in the out years, the new school is something that is on the thought process at least. And then the other thing, Nicole, is that the district has been able to leverage grants with these types of funds.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you want to get a grant, which is free money for the district, then oftentimes you have to have matching funds available. So for example, we've been able to get over $40,000 for a lighting project from Eversource because we had some CRF funds in the bank that we were able to match it with.
Right. And then just this past year, we had a situation where the fire panel at Goffstown High School kind of went kaput. It really wasn't, planned, and we did use funds from the Capital Reserve Fund to replace that fire panel. So this particular year, we had all those things, the planned, the unplanned, and a Capital Reserve Fund allows you a lot of flexibility. So we're very appreciative for voter support. So this next slide you're going to see is just a history of the use of the Capital Reserve Fund. So yes, it started back in 2020 was the first time monies were spent from it. These were projects that the budget committee actually wanted to see. They removed it from the budget. And so these projects included gym lockers, the bleachers here at Goffstown High School. But over the years, as you can see from this list, we've spent money to repair the fire cistern at Mountain View Middle School. For those of you who have been in the Goffstown High School theater, Nicole, that came out beautiful.
It's lovely.
That was almost $300,000 that was recently spent. We replaced a boiler at Glen Lake School. So some of these things are nice, like a theater, and some of them are just necessities, whether that be a fire panel, whether that be a rooftop ventilation unit. So again, some of them are really nice, and sometimes they're necessities. So with that, we don't have a ton of money in this Capital Reserve Fund, and maybe Nicole, you can explain to folks, why we need the $250,000.
Sure, yeah. So as you can see on this slide, over the next couple of years, we have over $1.5 million worth of eligible projects for the CRF money. But we only have about $215,000 in the account right now.
Right.
So we're asking for another $250,000, which would bring us up to about $465,000. It's still far under what we would actually need to fund all of the projects. So we're really working hard to prioritize our most important needs.
Right, and I think that's the challenge is to, make sure that we're getting the best use of this. But the $250,000 will help us address only those very high priority needs. So with that, the next slide that we're going to show you is just some of the potential projects that might be used in terms of using that Capital Reserve Fund. So as you can see, we have certain sections of Bartlett School, actually other schools as well, where we would need to do roof replacements. And so we've allocated that. The locker room floors at Mountain View are in dire need of being replaced. It's epoxy finish and they're falling apart.
Yeah, I heard you can't even clean them properly anymore
Yeah.
without damaging them further.
And then the cafeteria tables at Mountain View are another issue. These are ones that it's almost a safety issue. We've been repairing them with new seats, et cetera, but they don't close like they should and they fold up. So we don't want students getting hurt because of a table, right? And then obviously we've got some things that are planning on the horizon, like the fire panel at Mountain View. We have an in-building transformer for electrical needs, and that's another thing that's on our horizon, as well as replacing our district-wide phone system. So these are all things that are coming to end of life, and we were programming those in for potential uses of this capital reserve fund. So again, Nicole, I think that the $250,000 is also being sensitive to, what's going on in terms of, we had a pretty substantial increase in the budget, and there is a need for a greater deposit, but I think the school district, the school board was sensitive to that.
Yes, 100%. We have a lot of facilities needs. This is prioritizing what we see as some of the most important needs to get done over the next year.
Right. So that's it for the Capital Reserve Fund. And now I'm going to be just briefly discussing that you'll see two more articles, and they are both petition warrant articles. So the first one is a petition article for security devices. So this was an article that was submitted by petition, and it was amended at the deliberative session. So it's a petition article to request $13,000, and that is for the purpose of purchasing supplemental door locks or door barricade devices to be installed in Goffstown schools to improve safety and security in the event of an active shooter event. And this particular warrant article was voted to recommend by the school board 9-0, and the budget committee also voted to recommend it 10-3. So you'll see that on the ballot, as well as the next one. So this is article number 5, another petition article, and this involves a tax cap. This article was also amended at the deliberative session, and now it states that this tax cap as amended it means that neither the school board or the budget committee can request that the budget go up by more than 30%. That requires a 3/5 majority vote to pass. Important to recognize that the school board voted 9-0 to not recommend this amended tax cap article. So with that, that concludes all of the 5 warrant articles that you'll see when you go to vote on March 12th. And Nicole, if folks have questions, you can always go to the Goffstown School District website, contact a school board member, contact the SAU if you do have any questions. The important thing is that there will be voting on at Goffstown High School and at Bartlett Elementary School on Tuesday, March 12th. So encourage folks to get out there and exercise their right to vote.